My name is Nadia, and I'm the CEO and founder of Perksy, which is an NYC-based startup. But one thing I'd love to bring up is I'm originally from Toronto, and seeing a community like this, seeing what Tribal Scale has been able to put together, this is amazing. I feel so proud to be from Toronto and to have seen this ecosystem completely flourish and thrive. So amazing job to Tribal Scale and to TakeOver Conference, and thanks for having me. So a little bit on Perksy. We're a next-gen market intelligence platform for brands. We power real-time research with hyper-targeted, hyper-local audiences of Millennial and Gen-Z consumers. And we do all of that through mobile. So in simpler terms, if brands want to understand their audience, they go onto our platform, create questions, they segment them, so try to reach them by very specific data points. Things like, if you want to reach Gen Z student athletes who identify as LGBT, watch Game of Thrones, and have over 1,000 followers on Instagram, you can target them. And then we analyze that data in real time. And those questions get sent through a mobile app called Perksy, which you can all download. And you can answer those questions, collect points, and redeem for awards that have over 100 participating retailers. So what I wanted to talk about today is building brands in the age of innovation, because we're seeing all these amazing things like AI, AR, VR, and even though they're amazing, it's important for us to think about how this changes our marketing and branding, because as these technologies and new platforms evolve, we also have to evolve with them. So when I talk to some of these innovators, I'm so thrilled to pick their brains, and I think about what brands wouldn't give to pick the brains of their audiences. Well, that's what I get to do every day at Perksy. We send contextual questions to these audiences, and I get to learn about what they're buying, how they're shopping, what's driving their behavior, where they're going, what they're doing, who they're friends with, what their hobbies are. And I only have about 15 minutes here, so I could spend it telling you that 75% of millennials prefer to work or buy from companies who support causes that they care about, or that 63% of Gen Z prefers to see real people in their ads over celebrities. But blurting out this stat and that stat, I don't think that's really going to help us today, because data is nothing without context. It's just a singular data point. And how do I know that my Gen Z is your Gen Z? Like my blue is your blue. It all goes down to segmentation. So core data is not an insight, it's a data point, and data means nothing without context. So I've compiled some learnings that I think are relevant to you today. So you can just take them, and they're more conceptual, and I think they're applicable to just about every business. And if you want to learn more about the stats that come behind them, because we pull this all the time for our research, you can just email me, and I'm happy to send you some infographics or info in general. So we live in the mobile era, an age where all things stem from and come back to mobile. Let's start with a challenge. Try not to look at your phone for the next 10 minutes. Very, very difficult. And it's because mobile rules our lives. For example, you probably woke up this morning to the sound of your iPhone. And yesterday, I ordered Uber Eats because the concept of walking 5 blocks to pick up my own food is now an archaic concept. Uber Eats is like Just Eats, for those of you who may not know. Everything from dating to food delivery to getting from point A to point B, it's all been revolutionized by mobile. Apps have now grown more popular than watching TV, which I think also speaks to the importance of apps for more than just utility. It's also for entertainment, which is crazy because when I was in high school, if you weren't watching The OC, you weren't really, what were you doing? You weren't cool. I wasn't watching The OC, so. 15 years ago, the internet was an escape from the real world. Today, the real world is an escape from the internet. Mobile has become ubiquitous. It has changed and still continues to change consumer behavior, which means that it's changing brand behavior too. So mobile allows us to be contextual, slide that doesn't exist. Mobile has been amazing for us as brands and consumers. And with great mobile comes great data. Today, we have more information on our market than ever before. We know exactly where our audience is, so we can reach them at the right moments. We can get granular, we can hyper-target them, we can personalize things to their interests using things like media-rich push notifications. Knowing what to do with that data is another story entirely. But it brings a whole new world of these capabilities, a world of personalization, hyper-targeting, and contextual reach. I'll give you a really good example. Nike, they probably do this best. So Nike will take a few key moments that they're working on, so let's say the Olympics or the World Cup, and they'll drop to their satellite areas, so let's say Chicago and New York. And they'll drop these hyper-local campaigns in these cities that are contextual and relevant to the cities, and that's why their marketing is so successful, because it's so contextual and personalized to the region, and they really understand the audience that's there. But with all this great data and with great mobile comes great responsibility. The consumer landscape is dramatically changing. It's becoming democratized. Now, more than ever, consumers have the right to decide whether or not they want to be marketed to. The new reality is, if your audience doesn't like your marketing, they'll vehemently reject it. Brands need to pay special attention to their audiences and refuse to do anything that would ruin those relationships. Because in the age of information, there's now a place for people to come together on these global stages, the platforms like Twitter and Facebook, and basically cause a stink. The new generation is scrutinizing. And if you're not aligning with their values, you can do some serious damage to your brand. I mean, think about the Pepsi Kendall Jenner fiasco, or the Dove ads that came out. That's a perfect example. This is the future of brand behavior. It will be driven and dictated by consumers. So here's what you do. Know thy audience. And I know this isn't like an age-old concept, but you can't just know-ish. I mean really know. People have been saying this for the longest time, but it also means being able to connect with real and representative people, real everyday consumers who are actually interacting, engaging with, viewing, buying your products and services on a regular basis, not a collected sample of professional panel takers. So with Perksy, the beauty of mobile is that you can actually bring these people together because you can reach them anywhere. That means you have a wider range of consumers who are just everyday people, like us. We're all everyday people. The biggest problem I tend to see with brands and marketers is that they're really disconnected from their audience on almost like an intrinsic level, and that disconnect is damaging value. The best companies are so in tune with their audience that when something new pops up on their radar, they inherently know whether or not to respond to it. Everyone today is talking about this stat and this trend and that finding, but all of these are just singular data points, like I said before. It's not about that one point. It's about pulling together all of these pieces of data and bringing them together to illustrate a point in time for your audience. Because data is not a lake, it's a flowing river. Habits, behaviors, and preferences of your audience, especially the mobile generation, are constantly changing, especially since they're in shifting life cycles, if you think about Millennials and Gen Z. We're constantly learning new things about these younger audiences. This is what we're bringing in these new findings every day. And sometimes we're surprised at how quickly a new pattern of behavior can pop up and then disappear just as quickly. And Gen Z isn't that far behind millennials, but already we're seeing that their behaviors and values can be vastly different. So we make it a priority to not just understand what they do, but why they're doing it. And we do that by talking to them. So moving at the speed of culture is really important in this day and age. How quickly you respond to something correlates with how quickly you can detect its presence in the marketplace. To remain at the cutting edge of marketing, branding, messaging, and audience trends, you need to be able to talk to them directly. So I'll give you a really good example. Zara is a company that does this very, very well. The average turnaround time for companies like Zara is typically 3 to 6 months from identification of a new concept to putting it to market. For Zara, that number is 14 days. It takes them 14 days from identifying a trend that their audience wants, so they'll have analysts that are scouring social media and talking to the audience. They'll identify a trend, it takes them 14 days to get that product to market. And that's why they constantly remain relevant. I mean, like 90% of this outfit is Zara. I like to call them fashion's first responders. But I think the main point here is that you have to research. You have to be constantly talking to your audience. And start developing real and meaningful relationships with that audience. Brands are built by consumers, not companies, very contrary to popular belief. So what that means is brand equity is actually held by consumers. When you put people first, your marketing transcends its channel. Integrate people into the core of your company. Oops. They have opinions on the ads you're creating, so let them participate. Make them feel like they're part of your brand. 60% of Gen Z thinks it's important for brands to value their opinions, and 42% of millennials want brands to ask them their opinions so that they can help develop future products and services. It's not about getting them to join in on your hashtag. It's about actually talking to them, like a real conversation. What relates resonates. Listen, authenticity is the new authority. Tell a story that people actually want to hear. Be relatable, but be real. Embrace trends and topics, but don't let them dictate your brand behavior. I once saw a Garnier Fructis ad. Sorry if Garnier's in the audience here, but once saw a Garnier Fructis ad that said hair on fleek. For starters, way too late, like a year and a half too late. And second, saying on fleek, it wasn't that cool to begin with. So that kind of stuff just doesn't resonate. Don't choose something because you think it's on trend. Choose what resonates with your brand and engages your audience. And nothing is more engaging than an actual experience. Instead of trying to get them to buy into what you're doing, focus on creating something that's worth buying into. Invite your audience to experience your brand on their terms. Engage them in a way that they actually want to be engaged. Basically, activations. I know this sounds very lofty, but there's a pretty easy way to do it, and it's through activations. SoulCycle does this very, very well. So they'll do pop-ups at South by Southwest and in Aspen during the holiday season. They know their audience so well that they know that the people they want to market to are going to be there. So they go out of their way to set up pop-ups in places like Aspen where they don't have a presence because they know that their audience is on vacation there. And they bring their product to them to make sure that they're giving them an unforgettable brand experience that just surprises and delights. And don't just create experiences, create movements. Emotional connection is scalable. Just ask SoulCycle. They have a cult-like following. In a world that's driven by technology, brands run the risk of losing sight of the human experience. Community is core to these demographics. They want to be a part of something bigger, something that they're passionate about, something that aligns with their values. But don't just join the conversation, start it. Be a trailblazer, guys. I'm serious. Let them seek you out. As a brand, you have to think, what's happening now and where is it happening? How can we start a movement? It's all about creating a genuine cult following, and that comes from starting these movements. So that's all my time for giving you the super motivational marketing talk. But on top of that, I just want to go a little bit into Perksy and why we do what we do. We noticed that brands were really struggling to connect with their audiences. And like I said, they were disconnected with them on a really human, psychological, and intrinsic level. And we wanted to create a platform where you as a brand, if you're looking to understand your audience, no matter who they are, we mostly focus on under 40, so Millennials and Gen Z, you'd be able to connect with them in real time. And we found that through our platform, we actually launched 4 weeks ago in Canada, but we've been in the States for longer. We found that through our platform, everyone from these small startups that are just launching and really want to know what these audiences think about their product or their concept, from them to Fortune 500s who are doing brand tracking, even VC firms down in Silicon Valley who are using our platform for due diligence on $50 million deals. No matter what you do in business, if you're selling to a consumer or trying to understand people or trying to understand an audience, we wanted to create this platform for you. And analyzing it in real time is, I guess, where the innovation comes in. I like to talk about things that speak more about the concept of what we're doing rather than the small details. I mean, if we go into innovation, we can say, we're registering 3 technology patents and 3 design patents. But like I said, all of that is just innovation catching up to a core concept that needs to be the underlying principle of everything you do. But moving back to, I guess, the main core point of this talk is when you're building brands in the age of innovation, you have to remember that every aspect of what you're doing, you have to innovate alongside the technology that you're integrating into your company. So that is all my time for today. Or at least I'm done. So.